Okay, thanks for joining us again today on Dr. Teach Me to Parent. This is a good program for you today. We're having a very unusual topic today. We're going to talk about an animal, hippopotamus, if you will, and we're going to talk with the author that's kind of crafted a story around this particular animal, and it's a family story. It's a story for all of us as a family. So welcome to the program, and get a cup of coffee and just kind of relax as we kind of unfold this story for you this morning and look at it from the point of view of, obviously, family life. Now, before we start, let me remind you that there's a Christian Writers Seminar coming up on February the 8th, be held at Fresno Pacific University. So if you have any writing skills or writing interests, or you've written, or you know somebody that's an author, a potential author, give them the information that's now on the screen in front of you, and they can just give us a call and register and come on over on the morning of February the 8th. It's an all-day seminar on writing skills, and be an important one if you are an author or you would like to be an author. And this is really for you. So avail yourself of that opportunity, okay? Anyway, nice to have you with us today, and we're talking to Danny Denny, and who is the author of this little book here, Baby Hippopotamus. And this is a little baby that discovers her strength. So welcome to our program this morning, and we're going to unfold this little story that you have crafted. And it's a cute one, actually. It's very colorful as well as cute. But give me a kind of just like a 1 minute, 30-second summary. What's the theme of this book? What are you saying in this book?
Well, the theme of Baby Hippopotamus is that she thinks her name means one thing, and it kind of identifies her as kind of a negative identification. And then when she finds out who she really is, yes, it redefines her identity. Mm-hmm. And so in just a sweet, simple way, it changes her thinking about herself, and it changes everything.
So the name itself is a very powerful influence,
yes,
on what an animal or a child thinks of themselves. Is that what you're
yes,
really saying?
Yes.
So the message is, be careful what you name your child.
I think that.
I mean, is that true as a parent? I mean, you want to be careful what name you give your child, because that implies something, or that will carry a message. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So what was the original name, and what was the change? Just give us a little sense there.
As a little person, sometimes we have nicknames. Well, Baby mm-hmm. Hippopotamus's name was just that. Well, then she tells her father, I'm so tired. I am tired of being little. I want to be big. I want to be strong, as children do.
Sure.
So he says, maybe it's time we call you by your big girl name. Well, she misidentifies her name as Gagrella. And she said, oh, people are going to laugh at me. Gaggy, Gagrella. Mm-hmm. And then he tells her, no, your name is Gavrella, which means God is my strength. And then he goes on to explain to her a worldview. And worldview is, where did I come from? Mm-hmm. Why am I here? What are my moral responsibilities? Mm-hmm. And what's my destiny? So he explains to her, God gave us Hippo's strength to enjoy Africa, where the book is situated, mm-hmm. and to live the life that he's given us in the Kazingal Channel, which is where they are also located.
Yeah. The interesting thing here, that what you've done is you've created a kind of an identity in this little child, and it comes from the father. You put the father in the role of the strong name giver, and the interpretation of the name and the meaning of the name. The father carries that message. Was that done on purpose? Were you trying to give a message to fathers out there to say, look, take a role in this and help name your child, and help the child understand the importance of a name and the meaning of the name and how to use a name to become something?
Yes. My parents named me after many generations of that name in my family, and my name means daughter of the hearth and home. I knew that as a young child,
you were told that.
And that did define kind of who I was. I was a homemaker. I raised my kids just like my mother did, and it did define me in a very positive way. I didn't mind to have that as the defining character of myself.
Yeah. In the book, it comes from the father.
And it comes
and
from the
in your
father.
life, it came from both parents?
From the heritage, yes.
From your heritage.
Yes.
It really came out of the history of your family background.
Yes, and my parents were both intentional about sharing our heritage. And like from my heritage, we came from the Clarks, from Lewis and Clark. We came from Daniel Boone. Those were some of our that was our heritage. And
that's a very rich background, by the way. Yes.
Yes, and pulling out the positive things that they did, that they went out and they explored and they weren't afraid and they just went ahead and did life in a very bold way. That we build on that. We build our lives on the shoulders of those who,
So really what you've done here is made a statement. It's important for a child to not only have a name, but to understand the meaning of that name and to let that name carry a message. Let that name influence the child. Let that name create a future.
Yes, it can do that. I think it's important.
And you've used the animal, the hippopotamus, but as your way of creating that kind of story and teaching that particular point.
And even the name came from the heritage of my mother and father, who are both storytellers.
Oh.
And so my mother told us baby hippomus stories, along with Papa Hippomus and Hippomamamus. And my father told us stories about an elephant named Goliath. And in that, was important now that I think back on it, there are the characteristics of a father: honest, trustworthy, dependable, protective. And he would tell the stories about this elephant. And again,
with those traits and those
with
characteristics.
those traits. And we would look at my father telling these Goliath stories, and we would see my father really had those traits. And so he was expressing the importance of those traits in our character also.
Is that right? Yeah. I was going to ask you about your own upbringing and your childhood experience, but I gather then you really come from a family where storytelling and talking and discussing and thinking ideas through was very common and very important.
A lot of communication around the dinner table, going on trips together, going to church, just in the evenings,
Sure. When you come from a talking family, you better marry somebody that comes from a talking family. You don't want to marry somebody that comes from a non-talking family. You're going to be in trouble. Did you?
Well, I did marry someone from a non-talking family, so I guess I did a lot of the talking.
And you had little struggles with that, I'm sure.
Yes.
I mean, couples do. I mean, it's better to have two from a talking family come together.
Yes.
I mean, because there's a lot to share. There's a lot to tell. There's a lot to share from your past and your experiences. And I gather that's very what you're trying to do here, is really kind of create a history in this particular animal, child.
And there's a balance of what is taught verbally and in actions in time spent. And then there's what is caught just in watching your parents.
Yeah.
The way they live their life, their values, their intentionality.
Yeah. When you have this subtitle, Discover Her Strength, what is the strength that you're trying to depict here or tell about or identify for her? What is her strength that of all the strengths that a person can have, what's the strength that you selected as a kind of a teaching point in this book?
Why don't we come back to that? That's be another question. We'll come back to that.
Because, I mean, everybody has many strengths, and, we can kind of say, okay, I have 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 of them, but, what is the strength of each of us? And I think that's something that parents out there really need to look at and really need to study with their kids, is to help them identify who they are, what their abilities are, what their skills are, but what that inner strength, that inner quality, that inner character, not just a skill that you can play baseball or you can, dance or whatever it might be, but that you really have a kind of a character trait that is the strength of the person as compared to the performance, which we often get ourselves in and think of as parents. So think about that, and I'd like to come back.
Okay, come back
to that. But so why did you write it? I mean, what was the trigger that says, okay, I'm going to write this book?
like I said, I come from a heritage of the storytelling. So I retold these stories, or I made up new Baby Hippomus stories for my children.
Oh, so you have a series of them, like.
Yes, and for my grandchildren. My grandchildren would say, tell us a Baby Hippomus story. So my mother would make up one on the spot. I would make one up on the spot.
Sure.
But again, using those character qualities, she would get into mischief, just get into a childhood scrape, and the ways that she worked through it. And maybe that's the strength, is that children as well as adults, life doesn't come at us organized manner.
Sure.
It is surprise by surprise, at least
Often.
often.
Often
And
it
what
is,
do
yeah.
you do?
Yeah.
What do you do? Well, you default to what your strength is. And either that's fight or flight, or that's, in Baby Hippomus's case, all of
Yeah.
her strength came together
Sure.
in the exciting part, in the drama of the story, to escape the jaws of inherent danger. And that's another thing. There are always dangers.
That's true.
The
Yeah, that's
dangers
right.
don't, they're in
That's right.
childhood and they're in adulthood. And as we live in a society where
Yeah.
there are dangers, even the hippopotamuses live in
Sure.
a place where there is danger. And she pulled her strength together at that moment,
Sure,
the
uh-huh.
strength to outswim
Yeah.
not a
sometimes the
crocodile.
danger is within the family itself.
It
Sometimes
is.
the danger is kind of in the neighborhood, or within the community, or just in the life experiences that we run into in the course of our life. So we have to be skilled, I guess, in being aware of potential danger, and then have the skill of knowing how to avoid those.
And that's where the parent comes in, the father, if he's in the family, the father in this story.
Good point.
Though it's not inherent that he actually told her of the danger. What I didn't write in the book, because I didn't have room for it, there are only so many pages
Sure.
you can put in the book this size, is that the parents were actually watching as the drama unfolds. And they were there, they were present. And so at the end of the story, when the Nile crocodile is ready to get Baby Hippomus, and Baby Hippomus comes into the protection of his parents,
Yes.
the pop is the one who roars and the crocodile goes away. So the pop is present, the father
Yeah.
is present.
So your papa, your father image is very strong in this book.
Yes.
I mean, in different ways, in different aspects of it.
In communication,
Right.
in encouragement, in letting her do what she does, letting her, she goes out and she dances.
So maybe this is a book for fathers. Maybe you hadn't thought about it in that,
I
in
had
that
not
sense.
thought about that.
Maybe this is really a book that fathers need to read. It's kind of one of those things you wouldn't necessarily pick up as a father or as a man, if you want to think of it that way. But maybe that's really true, is that you have created this story where the father kind of starts the process by the name and teaching the importance of the name, the value of the name, and the meaning of the name and all that. And then comes forth and provides a protection, for the child's growth and development.
Right.
It's an interesting point.
And he doesn't intervene. As he doesn't intervene, she actually has to live through the drama herself. And in the drama, she learns something more about herself, that she is stronger than she had in her identity,
Yes.
that she knew more, that she developed. And that's what I love. I think that's what I love about it. There's character development.
That's where the strength comes in. It's in the character of the person, not
Yes,
necessarily the skill of the
That's what
person.
I meant.
I think that's what you were trying to say.
That's what I was
think
trying
it's
to
the
say.
character. It's that inner strength. It's that inner ability. We always emphasize in our kids, what they can do, how they can perform, and how they can play and act and carry out skill. But really, as a parent, you really need to be concerned about how this child is developing internally, within their own personhood and within their own character, so that they develop skills of compassion and caring and empathy and independence and self-development and self-protection. And you can go on and on.
Yes.
Is there any one that you want to emphasize, or you think this emphasizes?
Well, as you were speaking, the word kept coming up to me was intentionality on the part of the parents. And you don't actually, it's kind of the undercurrent in the story that here are hippos. And the one thing I keep forgetting, I do want to say, this was set in a real place.
Mm-hmm. Oh, tell me, tell
This
me.
is set in Uganda, in
In
Africa,
Uganda, okay.
in the Kazinga Channel, which is in between King George and King Edward lakes.
Yes.
And it's one of the largest concentrations of hippos in Africa.
Yes.
So it's interesting from that point that to stimulate, let's look and see this place. Let's look on the internet. Let's find out about this place. Let's find out more about hippos. So from that point, I wanted to make it a real place that people could go further in just reading the story, that they could actually stimulate the interest of the child to find out about this place.
Yeah. That's clever. I'm glad you answered, because it really makes it real, doesn't it?
Yes.
I mean, it's not just a fictional statement, but
It's
it's
both.
really it's a real story.
Yes.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question. In the area of parenting, you're a parent and you've had parenting and you've seen parents, you write a book about parenting. 10 years. I always think, okay, what does a parent think in terms of their child 10 years from now? You know, if a child's 10, they're going to be 20. If the child is 8, they're going to be 18. What do you think about parents having a kind of like a 10-year plan for their kids? Have you done that with your family, with your children? Do you think ahead 10 years and what your child will become, or you'd like them to become? I get this from the book, because there's a father that's trying to create a future.
Well, I think yes and no. I think that I didn't do it as intentionally as I wish that I had.
Yeah,
but,
probably not,
all
probably not.
parents
Most
have
parents
regrets.
may not do
They
it
can
that
look back and say, I
intentionally.
wish I'd done this, or I wish I'd taken the time for
Sure.
this. But in the area of encouragement of the child, when you see that they have a passion, that and my parents did that with me. I had a passion to play the piano, so they invested time, money.
Okay.
To-
now you're on a futuristic path.
Futuristic thinking, then that did, who knew? I didn't know that it would help me in the future. I taught piano lessons for years. I didn't really anticipate that in myself, or did my parents, but
Yeah.
they pushed my passion. They encouraged my passion. And I think that's the part that parents are looking ahead when they take the time
Yeah.
and they spend the time and they use their resources in the way that the child is already, they are directing those positive parts of their personality and their character.
I think that is important of helping a child think ahead. Think 10 years, if you will. You know, you start out here and you have this little piano ability of an 8-year-old, 10-year-old, or whatever. You go in thinking during what's going to happen 10 years from now. But in fact, that's what the role of the parent is, to kind of project that, or you get the estimate or some kind of a vision of what that could result into, 10 years out or 20 years out or so on. That's why you invest in your kid, because there's some potential there that you can see your child moving in that direction, over the future years. Did your parents do that? You think that
They didn't do it we always assumed that we would all go to college.
Sure.
That was just an
There
assumption,
you are,
and
sure.
that was part of the.
That's part of it.
That's just part of it, and so we didn't really think anything different. And naively, we thought, okay, well, everyone who goes to school goes to college, but of course that's not so. But just to direct our future, in that we will continue to learn, continue to work hard, and again, those character qualities: do your best, never give up.
Yeah.
Once you start something, you don't stop it until you're done.
Yeah, I think that's really what a parent needs to do. Kind of grasp that whole idea, is that you have to kind of you point the direction, you give a little push in that direction, and then you keep moving along. And where it goes, you don't really know for sure, but as a parent, you got to have an idea. What are the options, or what's the range of possibility, for your child? I mean, that kind of thinking, I think, needs to be done by a parent.
Yes, I think it does.
I don't know if you did
too.
that, or
Well, I didn't.
your
I
parents
didn't.
did
I
that, or-
didn't. I think I did it unaware, and I
Yes,
didn't
yeah.
articulate it. And
Perhaps.
I didn't make a chart. I didn't make a 10-year plan. Well, I didn't have a 10-year plan for myself. But by the grace of God, they came out to be good, law-abiding, God-fearing people who can have relationships. I mean, they're good people. They have become really good people in society and in their relationships, and so I guess I must have done something
You
right.
did. But it's nice that you can say that, though. You can say it publicly.
Well, I can say
your
that in
adult children now
spite
have
of
really become good.
in spite of the hash that I may have made of parenthood, they
Sometimes, in
still
spite
came
of
out-
us, they do quite well.
They
don't
do quite well.
but it's not all bad, and it's not all good either, but not necessarily. But let me ask you this about parents today and family life today out there. You see it within your friends, you see it in your neighborhood, you see it in the schools, you see it in the church, you see it in various kind of places. Family life today is stressful. It's tough raising kids today. I don't know if it's any tougher than you experienced or I experienced, but what's your view of what's going on out there today in family life and the homes? What's the trouble or what's the strength that's going on out there that you see? What are your concerns for the family life today?
My concern is that there is so much pressure from society, and we have so much more information than when I grew up, when my parents grew up, that we have so many more options. The parents don't default to their instinct and their common grace of the things that they have to be good parents. They're busy doing what society says. You can have it all. You can have a career. You can have all of these possessions, and you can have a great family. Well, there's only so much time in a day. There's only so many years in a child's childhood.
That's right.
And so the parents' challenge, I think, is to prioritize for their children, for this brief childhood, and they may have to decide to great sacrifices on their part to make sure that these few years are really good years to propel their children into a very tough society.
It is. It is. But if you're thinking that way, if you're aware of it, if you give thought to that, you're probably going to carry it out. You're probably going to do reasonably well in preparing your child to move forward and be more skilled in dealing with the stresses of the day.
And to also realize the parent has, I think, a greater responsibility to protect their children from the internet, to protect them from things on television, protect them from society's influences that maybe they don't believe in. Maybe they believe very differently than the pressures of society, and that they have to not be afraid to say that this is the way we do it in our family. And I said that very often. You may hear that at school, your friends may do that, but this is the way that we do it in our family. And we pull together and we address our values and what I hope for the children within the sphere of what I think is important.
And not be ashamed of that.
And not be ashamed and not be afraid and not be pressured.
By that, if you will.
Intimidated.
Yeah. I mean, you have to take a stand. You know, and when I go back to your book, it's the same idea there. You know, you talked about the father setting up some protection for this little baby, you know, from the environmental stresses and strains and attacks, you know, that are going to come. And you talked about them as well. You have the internet, you know, that's an outside force. You have to help your child protect your child from that, and you know, put some strength around that. There's a lot of these kind of areas of potential difficulty or potential stress and strain and hurt and trauma and pain, you know, that comes to children, and that's our job as a parent to really help them become aware of it and help them protect themselves from those kind of influences.
Well, those are the now crocodiles in the lives of our
children. Those are the crocodiles. Yeah, we sometimes refer to those as the demons in the life of a child, but you refer to them as the crocodiles.
Yeah. So the crocodile is identified with all of those things. And another thing in a hippo, they're not just a family. They're not just a single. They're always in a pod, which is their community.
That's right.
And so that's another important element. What I wanted to make sure that I brought in, that here wasn't just a little family or just a father and a daughter. Here was the protection and the nurturing and the care and the community and the social aspects of a community.
I like that. You know what we're going to do? We're going to take a break.
All right.
And I'm going to come back. I'm going to ask you that question. If you elaborate on that just a little bit. A family doesn't exist in and of itself. It exists within the context of a community, of a larger community, whether that be neighborhood or whether that be the friendship, the extended family and friends and so on. You're going to talk about that, will you?
All right.
Give us a little bit of a context of that as to what you were thinking about in terms of this kind of greater community in which this family lives and how they help and relate to each other. So we'll do that as we come back from our break, okay? Get a cup of coffee, and we'll see you in a couple minutes.
The Green Gables Care Home is a 24-hour assisted living facility for the elderly located in Clovis, California, offering spacious private and semi-private rooms which are wheelchair approved, catering to the special person in your life who needs attention and wants to live in a loving home environment. The Green Gables Care Home has assisted living in secured homes for elderly with Alzheimer's, memory loss, and for your loved ones needing assistance with their activities of daily living. Call 559-297-9438 and visit greengablescarehome.com.
Sometimes good intentions hurt rather than help. For just $1.76 per meal, the Fresno Rescue Mission offers more than food. We offer hope. Please donate today.
Do you need a locksmith? Layman's Lock and Safe Service and Repair is available for you. 559-228-1805.
Gained a lot, learned a lot, and got a lot of love. If it weren't for the knowledge that I had gained from the classes at PCC, I probably wouldn't be the mom I am today. See, there it goes.
I would love you to meet my son, Aaron. My situation was very difficult. I didn't know how my life was going to turn out.
We graduated in June 2010, and we got married in July. And through family, the Pregnancy Care Center changed our lives.
The Pregnancy Care Center was a huge, vital part in helping me walk through that pregnancy, in educating me and loving on me during that time.
Choosing a Medicare plan can be difficult and frustrating. Susan Hatch can guide you through the Medicare maze and help find the right plan for you. Susan helps people understand the confusing and drastic changes that occur every year in Medicare. Susan will only recommend plans that will protect your assets and allow you to continue to see your personal doctor. As a 100% independent agent, Susan is not controlled by any particular insurance company to steer a person onto any one particular plan. Susan was awarded the #1 Medicare supplement agent in California. Look for Susan's Medicare question and answers every Monday in the Fresno Bee. Call Susan at 559-307-2287 and visit MedicareToday.net.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
All right, welcome back, and glad you're joining us as we have this little conversation with Danny Denny, who has written this really cute little book, Baby Hippomus, and a story of a hippopotamus family, but it's really a story about you and your family, and me and my family, and how we do family, and how we do family within the context of community, and how we do family life, and raise our children. So there's a lot of good lessons in this little book. It's a small book, but it's a very powerful one, and it's got a lot of lessons in it, and glad you're joining us, and we'll pick it up here at this point. But, you know, I have a little quote that I just want to put into the discussion here. Maybe you can comment on it, you know, as well. And friendship is the cement that holds the world together. Now, you're talking about a family, you know, that is bond together. What's the cement?
Well, that
How would you say a friendship is a cement, but were you building that into friendship, or were you building into something a little different that cemented this family together?
well, the family is the first part, and then the community, the
Okay.
friendship within the community. And I would say the family should not exist without a community to support it and encourage it and make it more, give depth to that family's experience in
That's a
life.
very good point. You know, the parents really need to include into their life a sense of community, wherever that comes from, right? I mean, what you're saying, you don't raise your kids alone, you know, but
Well,
you raise them in the context
it
of
is, so you shouldn't.
well, you should do, and you should create your community, I guess.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
in the context of their schools, their teachers, their playmate, their classmates, their sports, the church, everything that you do that is not just at home. To pull together, to encourage, to bring together. That was one thing. Our home was always an open home for
see.
friends. We always had friends come
Sure.
in, and then you meet the
Sure.
parents, and then in that way, the parents can know who their children are and a little bit about what their children are thinking because of who they're with.
That's right.
And the encouragement of other adults in the lives of our children who are bringing richness to their lives too.
So, like in your family, what was the community? You know, you created a sense of community. Who was included in that? I mean, are you talking about just extended family?
Well, in
Or beyond
my
that?
family and on our street, our neighborhood, our house was the house where everyone came to eat popcorn and play hide and go seek, and so the neighborhood was welcome. So then it's just the neighborhoods and also the parents of those children.
Sure.
And then for us, it was our parents made sure we all did either a sport or an art, and then those people became part of our community.
All
Those
right, so now
people
it's
that
growing.
were
It's
influencing
expanding.
us.
That's right.
And then church, youth group. Then we had, again, an expansion of more people. And again, I would say sports is always very important because it is a growing community. After the baseball game, you're going to go have pizza. And you meet all the parents, and you're meeting the coach, and you're talking and incorporating that into the experiences of your child.
I always think of it this way, that the research shows this, that a strong family, whether you're a hippopotamus family or whatever, a strong family needs 3 circles of community. You know, your own immediate family is usually the one circle, and then maybe the extended family is like another circle, and your neighborhood is another circle. You have the church, that's another circle. You know, you had your sporting group of people, that was another circle. You had about 4, 5, 6 circles of relationships, of community, if you will. But a strong family needs 3. And if you have 4, that's better, and if you have 5 even, that's maybe a little bit better. And that's what you
Yes.
were talking about. And that's what you experience, I gather, and you try to create that in your own family.
And the benefits, one of the benefits of community is maybe someone in your community, your larger community, can give your child an experience,
That's
take
right.
them to a place that you wouldn't
You
be able
can't,
to
or
take
you-
them.
that's right.
Or
That's right.
you know, take them to a play or an opera, or take them to the coast, take them to the snow. We took some friends of my children's to the snow. She said, I've never seen snow before. And that
Is-
was so wonderful to be
is
be able
that-
to share our community with that
Be
child.
the first one to introduce a new experience. Yeah, that's great. I can think of that, too, in terms of our own family and how we raised our kids. We had many circles of relationships, you know, that created family, and that created community, and created an extended family, and, you know, kids benefit from that. We benefited from that. We all benefited, you
And
know,
it
from
also
that. And I'm sure we
creates-
shared benefit with others.
Yes, and it creates a safety net also,
Well, there you are. That's a good point.
which is, and
Yeah.
now you see again the drama that unfolds in Baby Hippomus' story. In real life, in hippos, which since we're talking about animals, they
Sure.
are together for
Yeah.
protection against the outside forces, and not only Nile crocodiles, but some of the other things that are in the African landscape
Yeah.
for their protection.
Yeah.
We do that as a community.
Oh, yeah.
We protect our
You know, we have a
kids.
number of teachers watching, and they're parents, but they're also teachers. And I'm wondering if, from a point of view of a teacher, and looking at your book, what would you recommend for a teacher to glean from your book and say, okay, here's something that you're a person of influence on the life of the children in your classroom. You're a person of of strength. You're a person of example. What would you tell the teacher today to kind of take from your book? If they were to pick up the book, read it, and take something out of it and share it with a class, what would it be?
Well, I see so many teachers that want so much to influence their students.
Sure.
To give them a sense of identity. You're an important person. You can do well since you're going to try hard. I just went to an award ceremony for my granddaughter, and for them to tell these children, you have academically excelled. You have done better than last semester. You are a person of character, and to really encourage and praise them on an honest level, not a compliment or not flattery, but really to say, look,
honest.
your
That's right.
character
That's right.
of being honest and being helpful and being friendly and being kind, that person, that those teachers are influencing those children in ways that will stick with them and go into their hearts.
I think teachers need to be reminded of that. I mean, I think teachers know that, but need to be reminded of that they really are a source of strong influence. And, you think in terms of academic subjects and, all the stuff we get caught in our teaching, but beyond that, in the subtle ways and the small ways, and maybe even a brief moment, you're really a character teacher, aren't you? A character builder as a teacher. Did you have good experiences?
I did.
With your kids, with the teachers? I mean, did the teachers in your life as a family
did, and
really contribute?
sometimes it would be such a small sentence, but our parents taught us to respect authority, to respect our teachers. So we really set up our teachers as being very important people in our lives.
And they are. And they are.
When they would say, "You can draw," I think you could be an artist. I mean, that a teacher can't really know what an impact that might do and how that might direct that child's life. So I would encourage teachers, give those encouraging words because they do matter.
I found that in my own experience. That I had a teacher that said at one point, I think it was the 7th grade, I can write. And I've written now 15 books. But it took me 30, 40 years from that experience to the time that I started writing like that. But she said that. And I always remembered that. That was a very important message to me, that she thought that I could write. And I guess I can.
I think you can.
Because I've done it. But I think that's where the teachers really come into it, is to identify what a kid can do and potentially could do. And then give the message and give the hope, give the direction, point the way, point the direction. And the parents do the same thing, I think.
Yeah.
Really.
And there's so much negativity that comes into a child's life. Or, say, going back to Papa Hippomus, who said, "You are strong." Mm-hmm. And then the child who really is hearing all these influences from maybe a little bullying at school or someone on the playground or even a sister or brother, because of the dynamics in the family, that they hear, "I am strong. I can do this."
Yeah.
And it has an impact.
What about church? What about youth pastors? What about pastors that are influencing family life? Same point as teachers? Do you think they carry a different message, or do you think it's just another source of strength, a message of strength, a message of direction for the future?
I think in one way that it's different is that they might identify your strength as coming from outside of you, as coming from God. Like this, I heard a story about a power source, and this man was cutting down his Christmas tree. He was cutting off the bottom, the end of it.
Yeah.
Okay, and so he asked his neighbor for a handsaw, and his neighbor gave it to him, and he's sawing on this big old chunk of, this big trunk, and he can't get through it, and half hour goes by, and his arm is killing him, and then finally his neighbor says, I have a power saw. I have a power. And so he gives it to him, and of course he cuts right through it. The point being is the power source. We can do so much as parents in our own. Our children only can do so much on their own. But if you have a power source, and that comes from church and the teaching and the spirituality that God is our power source, then that again changes your identity, and that changes your hope for what you can do with your life.
There you are. Yeah. Good message. Good message. Let's shift to here just for a moment,
Okay.
and I want you to think differently. There are kids watching out there. There are kids out there 10 years, 14 years old. Let's talk to the kids. What is the message of this book for the child? Not for the parent, but for the parent, for the child. Did you have that in mind? Did you kind of think that way in the sense of a kid is going to read this, and this is what I want the kid to kind of learn from it or pay attention to?
I want the child to see that they have more in them than they even imagine. And as they listen to people who encourage them, that they would receive that encouragement. And that would define who they are by their parents, by their teachers, by their youth group pastors, by, when they go and they listen to a police officer and who says, obey the law.
Sure.
Those things that I would say that child be open to those good, positive messages about who you are, where you came from, and what you can do with your life. And receive those because
So for a kid to be open,
to be
to
open
learn,
to positive
to hear what people are saying to them.
Yes, not just because you hear a lot of negative. The child can hear a lot of negative
That's right.
messages and a lot of temptations, and that again is where the parents come in to say, you have to listen. You have to be careful who you're listening to. If you're questioning an activity, go to people you can trust and talk to them, and that goes on through and in our junior high schools and our high schools that children are encouraged, go to someone you trust and tell them what you're thinking about yourself, what you're struggling with, and to hear those positive messages.
Yeah. So really, for a child to be open, to be teachable.
But not just to everything.
Not to everything, but to be give some thought to the value, and then who's teaching you. I gather is really what's important. Who's saying this, and who's influencing you.
And you should trust in your parents. They're supposed to be there to be trustworthy. And that's the challenge of the parent, to continue to grow in integrity and in trustworthiness. When you say something, do it.
Yes.
When you give a consequence, you follow through with it. That's when it's tough love, because it's really tough on the parent.
That's right. Your story builds around the father who is the teacher of this particular animal, hippomus, and a baby and growing up. And the father played a very strong role in influencing this particular child in your story. Many kids out here don't have fathers, or fathers that are involved, or fathers that are connected, or fathers that are teaching fathers, teaching parents. Dilemma, isn't it?
It's a dilemma.
It's a dilemma. It's a tough one.
Yes.
What does a kid do? What does a child do?
Well, a child often will go seeking, and then the parents of influence, whoever those parents are, that greater responsibility falls upon them, unfortunately, but that is the way it is, and they have to take up that responsibility seriously.
You hope that it's a grandfather
Yes.
rather than a gang member.
Yes.
You hope that it's a positive neighbor or an uncle, or somebody or bigger brother or whatever, that can really do that. And
Right, and on the part of the mother, or maybe it's a grandmother, to take up, it is a responsibility, and even a greater sacrifice to make sure that that child is learning those things that really only father sometimes can teach.
Yeah.
And finding role models.
It really says
that
that
child.
whoever is going to step into the gap where there's a missing parent,
Because
whether it's a
someone
mother or it's a
will.
father or whatever, where that missing parent is to be very strong and to be constant, to be there, to be present, and to be consistent, and to just assume the responsibility. Somebody has to do it.
Somebody has to do it because
there's a
it
gap.
matters, 'cause
There's a
gap.
missing point there. I mean, it's nice to have a family that works well together and close and are connected and are teaching, but there are many families that just have a hard time pulling that all
And
together.
again, that comes back to the importance of community.
Because there are others in the community that can fill in
help
that gap.
fill in that gap.
I like that. I think that's why your different circles that I mentioned about in your community
Yeah,
life.
don't go it alone.
Don't go it alone, but have different groups of people that feed into you as a family, feed into your child, and out of all that will come good.
Yes.
I mean, usually can, be the
Great
point.
potential for
That's
good.
right. Yeah. Now, look, you wrote this book, and it's available, I assume, on Amazon, I assume, or
Yes.
other places. Tell us about how a person can get this book. And I'd like fathers to read this book. I think it's a book really written for the message of fathers. But how would a person pick up the book?
They can get it on Amazon, or they can go to my website for my pen name, my author's name, which is Abigail Puzzler, and they can or contact me at my Gmail address, abigailpuzzler@gmail.com, and they can talk to me personally, and we can get the book. Or so the way that I came about the book
Yes.
was the encouragement not only of my parents, but of my community, because and my family, and my adult children and my grandchildren, I told enough stories, and they said, you should really write down these stories. These stories are just so great. So there was the encouragement. So then I heard about the Christian Writers Seminar, and I thought, I'll just go and see. I'll just go and find out. So it was still in the formulating stage. So I went to a pull-out session called Self-Publishing Your Children's Picture Book. And so I listened, and again, I was encouraged. And then I took the risk, and this is what another thing that we do need to teach our children is, you have an idea, take the risk, go for it. Jump off the diving board and jump in and just do it. And so I did. I hired a writing coach that would walk me through from the beginning idea, the beginning manuscript, all the way through self-publishing. And there it is.
And here we are.
And there it is.
Kind of a year's work.
A year's work.
But I gather there's a second book coming.
There is a second book, and so that is the sequel, and it is called Baby Hippomus, Here's the Christmas Story.
I see.
So it'll be out for Christmas.
Next year.
For her, to her, and this will have the mother in this one.
I see.
So this is Baby Hippomus and Hippomamamus, and they will hear the Christmas story and have it explained. So then the mother has the role of being the nurturer, teacher, to tell the Christmas story from a hippopotamus's point of view.
Beautiful, beautiful. I have to ask you, how do you get this pen name? Abigail Puzzler.
Abigail Puzzler.
Where does that come from?
Well, I wanted to have a little bit of protection for my own personal life, so I wanted to have a pen name. And I woke up in the morning, literally, with the name Puzzler. And Abigail is a wonderful character in the Bible of integrity and honesty, and so I love that name, and so I put it together.
It's a model for you. It's an
It's a
example
model
for you to live
for
up to
me.
that. To live up to that.
Yes. Again, a name.
A name.
A name that's important.
Has a lot of importance and carries a message and challenges us to live accordingly.
And that's one thing, if I would say to parents today,
Yes.
challenge yourself in the midst of all of the mistakes you have already made in raising your child. Because nobody's going to do it perfectly. You're doing the best you can,
That's
but
right.
you're a limited person, and they make their own choices, and so it's difficult. As well as teaching them, be teachable, learn, change, improve, develop, be humble, learn to be more forgiving, learn to, don't stop in your own character development. Don't think that you have arrived, because the children see the changes in you, and that encourages them that they can change too. They're not stuck with who they are.
Yeah. So this came out of the Christian Writers Seminar that you attended a year ago.
Yes.
And as I
so
indicated
I will
at the
go back
beginning-
this year,
Yes,
a
and
published
show-
author.
and show the book.
Right, here it is.
And you need to be aware of that. If you are an author, if you'd like to be one, if you're thinking of one, thinking of putting something together, Christian Writers Seminar, February the 8th, all day Saturday, Fresno Pacific University. And that's where it's held, and there's a little flyer about it being shown on the screen. And just come on, join us. We have people that are all levels of authorship and all learning to write and learning to kind of do it better. So if you are in that vein yourself, get a hold of us and register and join us for that day, February the 8th.
And I would say, if I can do it, you can do it. Because I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything. In every different part, you become, since it's self-publishing, you are your own publisher. So you are going through everything step by step. You're finding the illustrator, which this is a girl from the Ukraine. Did beautiful artwork, and I found her. And so it impacted her life that I was able to get her with her first illustrated book.
So the illustrator's from Ukraine, and the story takes place in the Uganda.
That's right.
So
and here I am, never being to either one of those places. And that there were so many times during this, if I hadn't made first the financial investment, that I think I would have given up, because it was difficult for me to navigate all of the new things that I had to learn in writing and editing and getting it ready for the printer and all of those things. I didn't know how to do any of those things. So it was a brand new field for me. But,
good.
You know, I wouldn't give up. And I think I can credit my parents, say never give up, and I would tell children, never give up.
Now it's your turn to tell
never
all of us.
give up.
Tell us all that story, very important.
Once you
I have
start,
a quote to end with. I want you to comment about this particular quote and put it together, because I think it kind of illustrates what we've been talking about today. Animals will give you their best if you give them your best. How does that tie to your book?
I love that animals, that we inhabit the world of animals and vice versa, and that we can see and learn so much from them. And it is our responsibility as human beings to take care of them. It really is.
That's giving give them your best.
And then they, in their natural way, just show us things about life and community and family and evil and good, all of those things. They teach us so much.
Who would ever thought that we would have learned
Who would have thought?
all these lessons from a hippopotamus? Who would have ever thought that? But that's the point. You gave Hippo here your best. And now you're giving us your best by the story that you're telling.
So I'm very thankful for hippopotamuses.
There you are. Hey, thanks for joining us today. Dr. Teach Me to Parent, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now.
When you need a dentist who has a passion for superior aesthetics and comfort, you need Dr. Christopher Wong with Cedar North Dental. Call 559-432-4948 or visit cedarnorthdental.com.
Try to close the club.
Tanya, come here.
At Boys and Girls Clubs, it's not just about trying new things.
Kitchen in my hometown.
It's not about learning the right steps. or making contact.
5, 6, 7, 8.
It's not about exploring the future. It's about helping them build it. It's about taking steps to greatness, about making a connection. It's about proving every kid and teen has what it takes. It's about people in our clubs who bring out the greatness in every kid who enters our doors. It's not just about being on stage. It's about walking across it. Great futures start here, and here, and here.
Sat7 is a Christian media network that uses uncensored satellite television to broadcast across the Middle East and North Africa, and is also available globally online.
When I set foot on the campus to come visit it, I was struck by how open and how welcoming the students and the professors were. Coming to Gordon was like coming home.
I think intentional community is what Jesus modeled with his disciples, and Gordon has really fostered a good place for intentional community to happen.
Gordon is a place where you can meet people from all over the world and hear their stories. I meet a lot of different people who are shaping who I am today.
Gordon seeks to graduate men and women of character, of leadership, and the world is the place where Gordon students belong.
Choosing to go to Gordon was, I think, one of the best decisions I've made in my life. I expect to be changed.
Pompe disease is a progressive, multisystemic, debilitation, and often fatal muscular disease. The United Pompe Foundation was formed to assist those affected by Pompe with the medical costs and other expenses that they may not be able to fully cover through their insurance. Visit UnitedPompe.com to learn more and to make a tax-deductible contribution to the United Pompe Foundation.